We are at chapter 16, planar kinematics of a rigid body. Now, before this, we learned kinematics and kinetics of particle, but now we will learn planar kinematics of a rigid body. You know what is kinematics is? Kinematics is where we study how motion happens, velocity, acceleration, position, but we are not worried about why motion happens. That's what we do in kinetics. So that's kinematics. And then we will see what is meant by planar. Planar means the motion occurs in one plane, and we will see what it is. And then first of all, we will see what is rigid body and what is particle. So before this, 4 chapters, we learn particle mechanics. That's kinetics and kinematics of particles. What is a particle? In particle, any object that moves, if we consider that is a particle, let's say this is a car, and if we assume that this is a particle, in that case we assume that size is negligible. We are not worried about size here. Then we say that all forces acts through center of gravity. So if whatever the car is not a particle, of course, in reality, but we assume that, and then whatever the forces, they are acted as the center of gravity. That's what we assume. And neglect rotation about center of gravity. We are not worried about rotation of the car. We have curvilinear motion, but as far as rotation around its own axis of any body, we are not consider that. And that's what particle mechanics is all about. And most of the problems, let's say 60-70% of the problems, you can get very good results with particle mechanics. But there are some problems that you cannot consider size is negligible. It doesn't work always. You have to have body is more complex or motion is more complex. You have to consider that as a rigid body. And that's the difference between particle mechanics and rigid body mechanics. So what is a rigid body? Rigid body here, points of application and the line of forces are important. So here, this car, we consider here particle, but in reality, if we want more complex analysis, we have to consider the car like this. So here forces are, reactionary forces are here and here. Here, all the reactionary forces are at center of gravity. We don't consider it here. Everything here, gravity acting at the center of gravity, reactionary forces here, force. All that is points of application of the line of forces is important, and rotation and movements about the center of gravity is important. Here we assume that it is not rotating. In reality, if body is going to rotate, we have to assume that rotation if there is a complex motion. And therefore, that's the difference between particle mechanics and rigid body mechanics. Here we consider rotation and we consider the specific of the object. In particle mechanics, we are not worried about specifics. We are not going to consider rotation. Many principles that we use in particle mechanics and rigid body, they are same, but how we handle the problem, it's different with rigid body mechanics. So rigid body motion by nature is more complicated than particle motion because it involves not only translation but also rotation. So now if you're going to consider rotation around its own axis, that's going to be your rigid body mechanics, and that's where you learn the kinematics and kinetics of a rigid body. So what we are going to do in this chapter, we are going to classify various types of rigid body planar motion. We are going to see what is a planar motion is. Then we are going to investigate rigid body translation and angular motion, study planar motion using an absolute motion analysis. Then later we are going to provide relative motion analysis. So this one is absolute motion and relative motion analysis with velocity and acceleration. And then in the end, we are going to show how to find the instantaneous center of zero velocity. Later chapters or later video, we will see something about instantaneous center of zero velocity, the method or the process, how to solve the problem by using that. So these are the objectives for chapter 16, planar kinematics of a rigid body. So let's go through this planar motion. There is a word planar in the chapter. What is meant by planar motion? Planar motion, it means anything that is happening in one plane. So we have a rigid body and it is traveling like this, or it's going curvilinear path, or if it is rotating. We assume that all that motion is happening in one plane. If this object comes out of the screen, so it is planar plus it is around one more dimension if we add it, that will be 3-dimensional motion, and then 3-dimensional dynamics will be different. So when we consider planar motion, we assume that everything is happening in one plane. So planar motion of a body occurs when all the particles of a rigid body move along path which is equidistant from a fixed plane. So everything is happening in one plane is a planar motion. There are 3 types of planar motion that we are going to learn in this chapter. One is a translation, another is a rotation, and the third one is combination of translation and rotation, which is also known as general plane motion or general motion. Let's see what are these three types of planar motion. The first one is translation, or to be specific, rectilinear translation. So let's say I have a body is just going to travel a same path, a straight path without any curve. And then if it does that, then you see if there are two particles here, these two particles on the body will also follow a parallel path, parallel and straight path. If that's the case, that's the simplest translation. The body is not rotating, it's just translating from here to here. That will be rectilinear translation. It's very simple. Happening in one plane, and that's my rectilinear translation. And then in the translation, again further classified as a curvilinear translation. Now instead of these two particles following a straight line, if they follow curve path, like here it is following a curve path. If that happens, if they are following curve path, then we call it curvilinear translation. So this translation planar motion classified into two parts, rectilinear translation and curvilinear translation. Both motions are happening in one plane. There is no rotation, and that's why we call it simply translation. Then there is a rotation. Now body is not going anywhere, it's not moving, but it's rotating around its own axis. And if that's the case, if this is a body, these are the two particles here you can see, and they're going circular around this axis. So this is body rotating on its own axis, we call it simple rotation, and that's pretty much it. That's your planar rotation. Rotation is happening in one plane. And then third one is general plane motion, combination of translation and rotation. So let's say this is a body, it's translating, it's going from here to here, at the same time it's rotating. So if this combination of these two things, translation plus rotation, if you have it, we call it general plane motion. And body is subjected to combination of translation and rotation. It's simple. So that's your simple three types. One is translation, another is rotation, and then combination, general plane motion, translation plus rotation. So these are three planar motions or planar rigid body motion that we learn here. Now why we need to learn planar motion? What is the significance? Why do we all this? So many times when you have these mechanisms, the later sometime you will take the course design of mechanisms. When you do that, you will see that not all but many mechanisms, they happen in one plane. So here, all these mechanisms that you see that there is no three-dimensional motion here, and they all happening in one plane. And when you design these simple mechanisms in one plane, you need to study what is planar motion is. It's relatively easier to study that than three-dimensional motion. So that's our planar motion, and that's why we need to study this planar motion happening in one plane. Now let's start with translation. What exactly happens in translation? Let's say I have this rigid body, and I'm going to take two particles here, particle A and particle B, on that rigid body, or 2 points A and B. And now it's going to simply translate. So here what I'm going to do is that at A, I'm going to take X, Y and Z axis. That's my origin here at point A. And then this body, this is the same body, translate from here to here. If it is a rectilinear translation. It's translating like this in straight line. If that's the case, and then it's a new position here, I'm going to have X bar, Y bar, Z bar. This is my new axis here. So here I can safely say that for my initial origin, this one is position of this new A is RA. From the origin, position of B is RB. And here I can safely say that this one RB by A, position of B with respect to A. Now whatever happens anytime during this translation, this RA and RB could change. It could be different. If it is closer, it will be smaller. If it is far away, then it will be RA and RB will be longer. But whatever happens, the distance between A and B will remain constant. It means RB by A will not change. It will always constant. So these are my vectors, position vectors RA and RB. So based on this one, based on this part, this diagram, I can rewrite this law. Based on this triangle, I can write it as RB by A is nothing but RB minus RA. That's position of B with respect to A. Something similar that we learned in chapter 12. So RB by A is equal to RB minus RA. And we know that this RB by A is always constant. So if we differentiate with this one with time, this derivative of this constant will become 0. So here velocity I am going to differentiate this position with time, and if I do that, 0 is equal to VB minus VA. That's what I get. Or I can safely say VA is equal to VB. It's common sense, but we need to derive it mathematically. So whenever you move this in the translation, velocities of A and B are exactly same. VA is equal to VB. If it is rotation, then it will be a different scenario, but as it is a simple translation, I can safely say that VA is equal to VB. And then acceleration, same thing, AA is equal to VB. Whatever acceleration of A and B is going to stay same. So acceleration of A is equal to acceleration of B, and that simply happens in the translation, that all the particles follow the same motion. The motion A, B, C, D, all these particles is going to stay same, and that's VA is equal to VB. So here all the points in a rigid body subjected to either rectilinear or curvilinear translation move with the same velocity and acceleration, and that's what we prove it with our rectilinear and curvilinear translation. Now let's take a look of rotation. Now let's say this is a body and it is rotating. It's not translating, it's not going anywhere, it's just going to rotate. So here this is a body, this is a front view, and then what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take 3 points here. Particle P, point P1 and point P2, 3 points here, and then it's going to rotate around this point O. Now let's say whenever this is going to rotate, it's going to rotate with an angle theta. Theta could be 90 degrees or 180 degrees or anything. So it's going to rotate with an angle theta. So let's assume that it's going to rotate with 90-degree angle. And where this body is going to rotate with 90-degree angle, these particles, this P will come here, this P2 will come here, P1 will come here, and that's what you see here. P comes here, here, here. This particle will follow a curvilinear path, circular path. These particles P, P1, P2, they are not rotating, entire body is rotating, but these particles following curvilinear path. So that's what you see, and then this is rotation is angle theta. So here, as this is angle theta, this angle theta, now it is 90 degrees, but in general, what we write that angle theta is in radians. Radians is basically unitless. So this angle theta, in this case, 90 degrees, which means pi by 2 radians. So it moves with pi by 2 radians. So here, 1/4 revolution, pi by 2 radians, that's 90 degrees. Half a revolution is pi radian, 180 degrees. And 1 revolution is 2 pi radians, 360 degrees. Now, when you look at the blackboard, there is a video on the blackboard that explains what is meant by radian is. So go through that video, it's very informative video. If you don't understand what radian means, look at the video on the blackboard. You will understand what radian means and how the radian unit came into existence. Now radian is basically unitless, it does not have dimension, it means mass, length, time, meter, kilogram, second. It doesn't have that, it's just a number, 1.57. So here 1/4 revolution is 1.57 radians. 1 radian is 57.29 degrees, keep that in mind. So every time something moves 57 degrees, that 1 radian. So that's my 1 radian, or these are some convergence, how to find. You need to know convergence angle. I'm not going to teach you that here. Make sure that you understand what is this convergence. 1/4 revolution, 90 degrees, 1.57 radian, 2 pi radians. 2 pi radians means the entire circle. If you're going to come back the same point, that's 2 pi radian, 1 revolution. That will be 360 degrees or 6.28 radian. Keep that in mind, and also watch that video to know what radian means. Now, so here the way we learn, whenever rectilinear motion is, we travels distance s, something is traveling in straight line, we say distance s. Same way, something is traveling in circular motion, we say it traveling distance theta, or here angular position theta. So this point P is going to go from here to here, and that's your angular distance theta. Theta is in radian, or we also call it angular position. Now whenever it's going to rotate, it's going to take some time for rotation. It's not going to go from directly here to here immediately. It's going to take some time, half second, 1 second, 2 seconds. So angular position, I'll get something called angular velocity. How much amount of time? Distance upon time. Angular distance divided by time, I will get angular velocity, distance upon time. So angular velocity is given by letter omega. Omega is d theta by dt. Theta is my total distance traveled, d theta by dt in radian per second, I will get omega. That's my angular velocity. If I differentiate it one more time, this omega, d omega by dt, I will get alpha. Alpha is angular acceleration. So omega and alpha, the way we use v and a for velocity and acceleration in linear linear transportation or linear change in position. Same way, angular acceleration, angular velocity omega, angular acceleration alpha, d omega by dt, or double derivative of theta radian per second square. Keep the units in mind. That's what we get with rotation about its fixed axis. And then once I know these two things, this dt here, this dt here, I can equate this and I can get relationship between alpha and omega, and that will be something like this. Alpha d theta is equal to omega d omega. That's the relationship between alpha and omega if I equate these two things based on dt. That's what we get. Now if you remember chapter 12, you learn exact same thing. You learn in chapter 12 velocity is ds by dt. Acceleration, that's a linear acceleration, dv by dt, and then combination of these two, a ds is equal to v dv. That's what you learn in chapter 12, linear velocity or linear motion. Same way, angular motion, omega d theta by dt, alpha d omega by dt, and alpha d theta is equal to omega d omega. It's exactly same thing. Here we have linear motion. Chapter 16 we learn about angular motion. Now if you remember in chapter 12, we derived these three basic equations. We derived two final distance, final velocity, and another equation. We derived these equations by integrating the earlier these three equations. Same way, we can derive these equations for angular motion. And if we do that, if it is a constant angular acceleration, the way we have constant linear acceleration, such as gravitational acceleration, if for some reason we have constant angular acceleration, we can derive these three equations. Here we have theta, final angular position, initial angular position, omega, initial angular velocity, and then your constant angular acceleration. And then we have to derive these three equations. So again, these three equations are very important. You are going to need them in chapter 16, you are going to need them in chapter 17. Keep that in mind. And then also we are going to have some knowledge from earlier chapters. So we are going to use all of that here in chapter 16, and we will see. So keep that in mind. These are very basic, very important equations. So the important thing about this rotation is that, let's say there is a particle here, I'm here, that particle never rotates. So particle on the rigid body, they never rotate. Entire body is rotating. It's going to rotate with some distance, angular distance theta. It will have some velocity, some acceleration. But if I take particle here, the particle itself won't rotate. That particle will always follow curvy linear path. So keep that in mind. So here that particle will undergo curvy linear motion. The particles in the rigid body have linear velocity. It means if I take a particle here, that particle itself will have linear velocity in meter per second. I can actually calculate from here to here how much time it's going to take to follow this curvy linear path. So even though particle is rotating, it is going to, the particles on the body, the individual particles, they will follow curvy linear path. So keep that in mind. Also, whenever we know that we use x, y, z, I, j, k for I for x, unit vectors I, j, k for x, y, z. Now you are dealing with three-dimensional. So here theta, omega, alpha, we use letter k. Whenever you rotate something, is rotating around this axis. This axis z is coming out of the screen. So we have x, we have y. But rotation itself is happening in third dimension. Rotational axis is coming out of the screen here, and that's therefore we use letter k whenever we have to, this theta, this alpha, omega, this alpha, they are vectors, they have direction, and therefore as they are vectors we need a unit vector k. That's what we use because the axis comes out of the direction, axis of rotation. So theta is equal to theta k, this theta is magnitude, this is direction, omega is equal to omega k, and alpha is equal to alpha k. That's the letter k, a unit vector k, that's what we use here. So keep that in mind for this theta, omega, and alpha. Now let's see linear velocity. Let's see, this is a point here, we have point P here, and this entire body is going to rotate. It has some, with omega and alpha, it has some angular velocity omega, it has some angular acceleration alpha. So here the velocity of this point here is given as ds by dt. How much the distance is going to cover on this curvy linear path here, from here to here. If I take a thread and if I measure that distance, that will be my s, or ds by dt, it will have curvy linear velocity here, and that will be given by ds by dt. Now s, the path covered, is nothing but r theta. r is the radius, and theta is how much angular distance is going to cover. If I have that, I can calculate this path covered. If I take a thread, I can calculate that s, and that s is given by r theta, radius and total angular distance covered. So I'm going to take that r theta, I'm going to plug it back here, and if I do that, I will get v is equal to r is constant, d theta by dt. D theta by dt is nothing but omega r. So I will get simple expression v is equal to omega r. What does it mean? If I take point P here, if I take point P here, here, anywhere, if the entire body is rotating, the velocity of that particular point, linear velocity of that particular point in meter per second, I can calculate it by using this formula. V is equal to omega r. Velocity, linear velocity, omega is the overall speed of the entire body, rotational speed of entire body, into r. If I know the radius, I can simply calculate its linear velocity. So that's the relationship between linear velocity of the particle and angular velocity of entire body, and that's what you can see it here. V is equal to omega r. V equal to omega r is very important expression. Always keep that in mind. We are going to need this expression many times when we solve this problem in this chapter. So V equal to omega r, that's how we can calculate velocity of an individual point on the body. Then what is an acceleration? So here we calculate velocity V equal to omega r. Similarly, if you want to know alpha, what is the acceleration of this point? So acceleration is normal acceleration, tangential acceleration, I can resolve it. And then I'm not going to go into detailed mathematics, but what I get is that this normal acceleration and tangential acceleration is alpha r, whatever the acceleration of this point P, here tangential alpha r, the way we have V equal to omega r, tangential acceleration alpha r, and normal acceleration is given as omega square r. So whatever the angular velocity into r, or v square divided by r. So either way is fine. So you can calculate this tangential and normal acceleration based on angular acceleration, angular velocity of the entire body. So if I know this idea, I can calculate linear acceleration, normal and tangential here of this point P here, curvilinear in this case. So this is the these are the equations that we use when we want to find out the acceleration of that point P if on the body if it is rotating. Let's do a problem. This is very interesting problem. So what we have in this problem, if a system starts from the rest, so what we have is one motor here, and this motor is driving this big wheel here. So this big wheel is going to rotate. Now it's going to rotate anti-clockwise direction, and you can imagine these are connected with this belt. And then as soon as this starts rotating, it's going to rotate this big wheel. And once it rotates this big wheel, there is a smaller wheel attached here, and that smaller wheel also going to rotate. And when that smaller wheel rotate, there is a weight attached here. That weight will go in upward direction. What we want to do in this problem is determine how much distance the weight travels after the motors turn one revolution. It means this motor, you are going to press the button, this motor will travel one revolution. And here it says that the acceleration is 2 radian per second. It says that constant angular acceleration 2 radian per second. Which means as soon as you press the button, the constant angular acceleration of this motor is 2 radian per second, and it's going to cover one revolution. And when it does, the entire mechanism will operate. This wheel also rotate, this smaller wheel also rotate, and when it does, this will go in upward direction. So how far it's gonna go from this position here, 1 meter, 2 meter, 3 meter, 4. How high this weight is gonna go, that's what we want to find out. And that's the problem is. So here the dimensions are given, the radius here is given, the radius of the large wheel is given, the radius of the smaller wheel is given. So the basic information we have. And we have alpha 2 radian per second. We know that. So now our objective is to find out the distances. So here we are going to assume some. For this one, I'm going to say this is wheel A. I'm going to assume it omega A alpha A. And then here for this big wheel B, I'm going to assume that omega B alpha B. That's my angular velocity and angular acceleration of A and B. And then whatever the smaller wheel, whatever the omega B, big acceleration there, whatever the acceleration of this big wheel will be exactly the same of this small wheel. Now, I'm going to take 2 points here, P1 and P2. P1 here on the belt, Let's say this point P1 is going to travel like this, and P2 on this second row here, I'm going to take them. My objective is to find out how much this P2 go in upward direction. This P2 is connected to weight. So P2 travels 1 meter, weight also travels 1 meter. So my objective, how much final distance covered by P2 in upward direction. It means that final distance by this point P2 or particle P2. Final position, initial position 0, let's assume that. Initial position 0. Initial velocity 0, it starts good from the rest. Initial velocity 0. All I need is the time required for one revolution here, t, and I need acceleration. That's the linear acceleration of this point P2. If I know this acceleration, if I know how much time, I can put it here, this is 0, this is 0, I can calculate final distance traveled by P2. And that's how we can solve the problem. So all you need is that acceleration of this P2 and time required for one revolution for this thing. That's it. You know that, you can calculate S, distance traveled, it means you know how much weight is going to go in upward direction. Now, to calculate this acceleration of P2, we needed to know its velocity. dv by dt, if we know the velocity and if we can differentiate with time, we should be able to calculate acceleration. So acceleration, we need dv by dt. Then, what is velocity? Velocity is nothing but omega r. We just proved that v is equal to omega r. In this case, omega is the speed, angular speed of this big wheel. And then that same speed will be for the small wheel, angular wheel, because the same thing. So omega r, so omega b into this smaller radius 0.3. So we have Rw here. We need omega b. Omega b is this big speed. That's v is equal to omega r. So the idea is that find out velocity, then find out acceleration, put that acceleration here, then calculate time, find out the distance traveled. That's how we solve the problem. Now, to solve that, to get this omega b, we start with this equation. Omega is equal to omega 0 ACT. That's the basic equation we have. So for this A, initial velocity is 0. So omega 0 is 0. So omega A, this one, is equal to alpha A into time. Alpha A is 2 radian per second is given. Into time, we don't know time. We don't know time required for one revolution yet. So I'm going to keep it like that. So omega A is equal to 2t. That's what I get. Omega A is equal to 2t. That's the relationship here. So now I'm going to concentrate on this point P. What's going to happen? This point P will come here, and the velocity of that point P will be Vp is equal to omega r. V is equal to omega r, omega A r A. Then this point is going to come here, and this is going to come here. And when it comes here, it's going to travel like this. So when it comes here, the velocity will be V equal to omega r. It means omega b rb. So here I'm going to write down like this. Vp1 is equal to omega ARA is equal to omega BRB. This is the most important relationship that you will learn in this chapter. Anytime you have two gears or two systems associated with the belt or with the teeth, with the gear, they are dependent on each other. This is the relationship you are supposed to follow. Omega ARA is equal to omega BRB. That's the relationship between this wheel and this wheel. This is very important part, so keep that in mind. Omega ARA is equal to omega BRB. Now, based on that, I can say omega B is equal to RA by RB by omega A. Remember, we need omega B to get this part. So, omega B is equal to RA by RB, omega A. I have already omega A 2t. RA, RB, I have values. RA, RB, I have values. I'm going to put those values there, 2t. And I'm going to solve this one. What I get is omega B is equal to 0.6t. That's the relationship I get. This omega B is nothing but 0.6t. Now, this Vp2, this part here, I know that this one is omega B into Rw. So this I know that. So I'm going to take this value of 0.6t, I'm going to put it here, and then I'll get Vp2 as omega B into Rw. The radius of the wheel is 0.3. So if this is 0.3, this is 0.6t. So 0.6t and 0.3 will become 0.18t. It means velocity of this point in upward direction is 0.18 t. That's what I get from these relationships. Once I am here, I'm going to differentiate it with time, dvp by dt. And if I do that, I get acceleration as this t goes out 0.18 meter per second square. And that's it. It means the moment you start a button, this point P is going in upward direction with linear acceleration of 0.18 meter per second square. And that's it. So now you have this part, 0.18 meter per second square. All you need is time required for one revolution. If we can find out time required for one revolution, you can solve this problem. So to find out time required for one revolution, we are going to use this equation here. Total time, total distance traveled, total angular distance traveled by A is equal to initial distance, which is 0, starts from the rest, initial velocity is 0, starts from the rest, plus 1/2 angular acceleration t square, and that's what I'm interested in. I know one revolution is 2 pi radians or 6.28 radians. It's going to cover 6.28 angular distance. So I'm going to put that 6.28 here. So 6.28 here, 0, 0, 1 by 2. Angular acceleration is 2 radian. I'm going to keep 2 here. And once I solve it for time, it means I can simply calculate time required for one revolution for this wheel by using this formula. And if I do that, if you can solve this problem here, what you get is 6.28 is equal to 1/2 2t square, and then you can solve it for t. It comes around 2.5 seconds. It simply means once you push the button, one revolution will take 2.5 seconds. And that's it. Once you have time, take that time, put it here. Then your AC is 0.18, put that here, 0.18 into 2.5 square, 1/2, and then you will get final distance traveled for S. And if you do that, that distance you will get is 0.56 meters. So 56 centimeters, this weight will go in upward direction with 56 centimeters or 0.562 meters, and that's how you can solve the problem. When you study for the exam, don't read the problem, don't just read what's happening. Take pen and paper, take calculator, solve these problems, and have your own problem. Change this 2 radians per second to 4 radian, 5 radian per second square, and see what difference does it make. Change this radius, create your own problem, see how much difference does it make. Don't read the problem, take pen, paper, take calculator, solve these problems. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult for you in exam. Now, just wait, something went wrong here. Okay, so that's what we did before. Here we calculated total distance traveled by this weight. Now once we are done with the total distance, the next part of the problem is the same problem. We have total distance, total time required taken by 2.5 seconds, omega b, we have value 0.60. Now what this problem says, that there is a particle P or point P here on this big wheel. Calculate the linear acceleration of that point P. What is the linear acceleration of that point P we want to know. Now this point P is following curvilinear path. As it is following curvilinear, this acceleration can be resolved into two components, tangential component and normal component. And if we can find out this normal and tangential component, we should be able to find out the magnitude of the acceleration of this point P. So we have all the data here, it's the same problem. So this acceleration of point P is dependent on tangential and normal acceleration, and this is the formula we calculate the acceleration. It means we need to know value of tangential and normal acceleration. These are the formulas that we use. Tangential acceleration is alpha b r, normal acceleration is omega b square r. So we need to know value of alpha b, we need to know value of omega b. So here alpha b is nothing but d omega b by dt. This is the formula. So here omega b we are going to differentiate it with time, and that will be 0.6. So alpha b we get is 0.6 radian per second square. Once we have that, we are going to take this 0.6, we are going to put it here. Value of r we already have, r is 0.5 meter. I am going to calculate this one as 0.3 meter per second square. So this tangential acceleration will come as 0.3 meter per second square. Normal acceleration is relatively easy. I'm going to put time t is equal to 4.5 here. I will get value of omega b. R here is 0.5. I'm going to put that there, and then if I do that, I'll get 1.125 radian per second square. This one should be meter per second. So this one is meter per second square. Let me change that. So here, so this one we have 0.3 meter per second square, and this one will get 1.125 meter per second square. Once we have these both things, we're going to put that here, and then we can calculate this acceleration, final acceleration of this point P as 1.164 again meter per second square. So that's how we can calculate. So this one is meter per second, so 1.1 meter per second square. So keep that in mind, and that's how we can solve this problem. Now let's do another problem. This one is from the book. Now what we have in this problem is that we have this smaller motor here A, and it's driving this big wheel. So something similar that we did in the last problem. And when it does, we want to find out magnitude of the velocity and acceleration of point P on the wheel. We want to find out magnitude of velocity and acceleration of this point P on the wheel, and that's what we want to know. So here the method, the process is same. So we need this acceleration of point P, at square plus an square. We have to find out at and an. Once we do that, we'll get this ap acceleration of this point P. So here at and an, the formula is given. At is alpha b rb. It means that we need to know angular acceleration of this alpha b, and then normal acceleration omega b, we need to know velocity. The information given is constant angular acceleration of this small thing alpha a is equal to 2 radian per second square, and then it says that it covers here 2 revolutions. It means it's going to follow 2 revolutions. One revolution is 2 pi, 2 revolution is 4 pi. It's going to travel angular distance of 4 pi, and while it does that, I want to find out what is the velocity at 2 revolution mark, what is the velocity and acceleration of this point P, and that's how we can calculate its acceleration. So now to calculate acceleration, I'm going to use this formula. This is again very important relationship between A and B, between accelerations and velocities here, angular acceleration. Omega A RA is equal to omega B RB, and alpha A RA is equal to alpha B RB. So that's the relationship I'm going to use here. And then here to calculate this omega A, this is the formula we have to use. Omega square, initial velocity is 0, plus 2 alpha c, that's your constant angular acceleration, is given 2 radian per second square. And here we have theta minus theta 0, that's final distance traveled. Final distance traveled is 2 revolutions, 4 pi minus 0. So first we calculate theta A, which is final distance traveled, which is nothing but 4 pi. I'm going to put that 4 pi here. 4 pi, and then alpha c is equal to 2 radian per second. I'm going to put that there, and then I'm going to calculate omega A. That will be speed at 2 revolution mark of this thing. Once I have omega A, I'm going to put that omega A here. I can calculate omega B, and then I can solve this problem. So once I have omega B, I can calculate this normal acceleration. I have alpha B already, I can calculate this tangential acceleration. Once I have these 2 values, I can solve it for AT and AN, and then I can solve this one for acceleration. This one is a solved problem in the book. Don't read the problem, take pen, paper, calculator, solve these problems. So once you do all these calculations, you know 4 pi is 12 radian per second, 12 radian over distance, and then if you do all these calculations, you will get omega A. That's the speed at 2 revolution mark at 7 radian per second, and then you will get omega B, you will get alpha B, and once you have that, you can calculate final acceleration for this point P as 2.84 meter per second square. If you do these calculations right here, you will get this final number as 2.84 meter per second square. Again, very easy problem. All you need to know is relationship. This is a relationship, very important. Once you know that relationship between this one and this big wheel, you can solve this problem. Let's do another problem. Now in this problem, instead of having this belt arrangement, belt and rope arrangement, we have two gears. Principle is same. So what's happening? This is a small gear A is driving this gear B. Now as gear A rotates clockwise, gear B will rotate anti-clockwise direction. The dimensions are given here, 75 mm, 225 mm, and this is a smaller wheel here, 125 mm. In millimeters is given, you may want to convert it into meters. What it says that this alpha A is rotating clockwise with constant angular acceleration of 4.5 radian per second square. The angular acceleration of this thing is given. What we want to find out is this weight C, how high this weight C is going to go. So it says that determine the velocity of the cylinder and the distance it travels in 3 seconds. So you're going to turn on this gear A and then it's going to rotate. It's going to start from the rest and then it's going to rotate 3 seconds. So once it's rotating at a 3-second mark, what is the linear velocity of this weight in upward direction and how much distance is going to travel? That's what we want to calculate. This is connected here and this big wheel is connected to this short wheel. You can imagine this mechanism. It starts rotating, it goes upward direction. We want to find that out, velocity. Now to do that, most important part, the relationship, you have to remember omega Ra is equal to omega B Rb. You have to remember that. Now total distance traveled, in order to calculate this total final distance traveled, we know that final distance is initial distance, initial velocity is 0, 0, constant linear acceleration and time. Time is 3 seconds, we know. What we need to know is the linear acceleration of this point. So here, linear acceleration of this point, this point, this point, this point is exactly same of tangential acceleration of this point P. Whatever the tangential acceleration of this point P here on this wheel will be exactly same of linear acceleration of all these things. So here, this velocity is given as velocity of this point P, or here at any given point is given as V0 plus ACT. So that's what we need to know. Constant linear acceleration here we want to know, which will be equal to tangential acceleration of this point P. Now here this constant acceleration is nothing but tangential acceleration of this point here P on the wheel D is nothing but alpha D Rd. Alpha D is angular acceleration of this one entire wheel, which is this one, and this radius Rd 125 millimeter or whatever the conversion in meter is. So we need to find out alpha D. Alpha D is nothing but the angular acceleration of this wheel B. They are mounted on the same thing. So if we can find out alpha B, which is alpha D is nothing but is equal to alpha B because they are on same shaft or they are mounted together. So we have to find out alpha B. Once we have find out, it means alpha D, we can calculate alpha D. We can calculate this constant angular acceleration. Once we have that, we can calculate the velocity and we can calculate distance traveled. That's the problem. So to do that, the important relationship alpha Ara is equal to alpha B Rb. Alpha Ara is equal to alpha B Rb. Based on this relationship, once we know alpha A, we know the radius, we can calculate alpha B. Alpha B is nothing but alpha D. Once we have alpha D, we can calculate this acceleration here, and then we can calculate the velocities and distance. So do these calculations and then you will get final answer. So here what you get if you use this alpha Ara equal to alpha B Rb, you will get alpha D or equal to alpha B as 1.5. It means this thing rotating anti-clockwise direction with an angular acceleration of 1.5 radian per second square. So that's the acceleration. It means the acceleration of this one is 1.5 radian per second square. Now I'm going to multiply it with this radius and then I'll get this linear acceleration 1.18 meter per second square for this point P, which is nothing but acceleration of here, everywhere. So I'll get that linear acceleration. Once I have that, I'm going to put it here. 3-second mark, I will get velocity. If I do that, the velocity at 3-second mark for this entire thing is 0.56 meter per second. And then final distance traveled, I'm going to take this 0.1875, put it here, t is equal to 3 seconds, 1/2, and then I'll get distance traveled s, which is 0.844 meter. It means it's going to go upward direction in 0.884 meters or 84 centimeters. That's how we can solve this problem. The next problem, what we have is a bus engine transmitting power using belt and pulley system. So there is a big bus engine, it's powering this pulley A, and this pulley A is further connected to this pulley B and then pulley C. So this is transmission, power transmission is going from here to here and here to here. Now this pulley B is driving a generator, and then pulley C is driving air conditioning. We want to find out, where T is in seconds, we want to find out, determine the angular velocities of a generator. What is the angular velocity? Is this one, VB, omega B and omega C. That's what we want to calculate. It's a very simple problem. Here what it says is that this omega A is a function of time. It depends on time, 20t plus 40. As time increases, omega A will increase. So at 3-second mark, find out velocity of this, velocity of this. This is a very simple problem. So for that, what we do, what we need to know is this relationship. Omega ARA is equal to omega BRB. Omega B is mounted on same wheel. Omega D and omega B will be same because they are mounted on same thing. So omega ARA is equal to omega DRD. Sorry, it goes like this. So omega ARA is equal to omega DRD. It's going to rotate this wheel, and this is connected to this big wheel. It means this omega BRB is equal to omega CRC. So all you need to know is this relationship between here to here, here to here, and then here to here, and these are the relationship that you are going to need here. So once you know one velocity, it should be easy to calculate the rest. So here, as this is 20t plus 100, what I'm going to do is that t is equal to 3 seconds. I'm going to take that 3, put it here. 20 into 3 is 60, 60 plus 40 is 100. Omega A is 100 radian per second. That's what the velocity I will get at 3-second mark. Omega A is 100 radian per second. It means 100 radian per second. I'm going to put it here. I'm going to calculate omega D. That omega D is nothing but omega B. Once I have omega B, I'm going to take that omega B here and I can calculate omega C, and you are done with the problem. It's very simple. So here, once you do all this, put t is equal to 3 seconds, calculate omega A, do this part, and what you get is omega B is equal to 300 radian per second, omega C is equal to 600 radian per second. You're done with the problem. You have this formula, you have this one. That's it. You know velocity of this one, and you know now what is the velocity and velocity of B and C all together. Now another problem is a similar format or similar way to process everything. We have a wheel B here, wheel A here, A is rotating. Now what's happening is that this alpha A in this problem, this A is rotating, alpha ARA here, and the dimensions are given, and then this alpha A is a function of theta. As the distance increases, the acceleration increases. So it's function of theta, it depends on theta. And 2 plus 0.006 theta square radian per second square, it's given. Where theta is in radians. Now if this gear is initially turning at omega A is equal to 15 radian per second. So now you start it at initial speed of this one is 15 radian per second. It's rotating 15 radian per second right from the beginning. Determine the angular velocity of B after A undergoes 10 revolution. So problem is, this is going to rotate, start rotating, you press a button, it's going to start rotating with 15 radian per second, and then it's going to cover 10 revolutions with this acceleration. So at 10 revolution mark, what is the velocity of this B? That's what we want to calculate. So this is going to rotate clockwise direction. This thing is going to rotate anti-clockwise. That's the problem. The relationship omega BRB is equal to omega ARA. This omega B we want to find out. RARB we know. What means all we need to know is omega A at 10 revolution mark. If somehow we can find out omega A at 10 revolution mark, we can calculate omega B at 10 revolution mark, and that's the problem. So here the time is not given for that, so that we are going to use this relationship. Omega d omega is equal to alpha d alpha. This is the relationship that we are going to use. We have this alpha already here. I'm going to put that alpha here. I'm going to rewrite this one. So here I have d omega here, d theta here. I'm going to integrate it. Initial start speed for A is 15. So that's 15 radian per second. And then after 10 revolution, final speed is omega A. That's what I want to calculate, omega A. Is equal to 0 to theta. It starts from 0 position. Theta A is 10 revolution. 2, this is the alpha. I'm going to take that value of alpha here. 2 plus 0.008 theta square d theta. All I have to do now is solve this integral and calculate value of omega A. Theta A 10 revolutions. Theta A 10 revolutions is 20 pi radian. I'm going to take that 20 pi, put it here, solve the integral, and when we solve the integral, what we get is omega A is 38.32 radian per second. All you have to do is solve the integral, simple integral. You will get omega A 32.32 radian per second. It means the speed now is 38.32 for this one. Once you have that 38.3, you can calculate omega B. It's very easy. It will come 28.89 radian per second. So at 10 revolution mark, this is rotating at 28.89 radian per second square. That's it. All you need to know is how to integrate this one, how to use this formula, how to integrate this one. You'll get it. Practice, understand what's happening, imagine the process, take pen, paper, calculator, solve it, and then it will get easier with time. Now the next part is this A and B we have here. This is the same thing. We are going to rotate A, and then B is going to rotate here in anti-clockwise direction. Initial speed of this A is 20 radian per second is given, and here we want to find out omega B when t is equal to 2 seconds. That's the problem. Only here is that this alpha A is function of time. So as this rotating, alpha A is rotating, as time increases, this alpha A increases. The acceleration is not constant, it's a function of time. And at 2 second mark, we want to determine the angular velocity of B in 2 seconds. So it's going to rotate, find out velocity of B in 2 second mark. Relationship, omega B RB is equal to omega A RA. So whatever relationship is going to stay same. So it means that here to calculate this omega B, we need to find out omega A at 2 second mark. If we can, if we can calculate omega A, we can calculate omega B. So to calculate omega A, I'm going to use this formula. Alpha is equal to d omega by dt. If you differentiate velocity with time, you'll get angular acceleration. Alpha is equal to d omega by dt. I'm going to take this dt this side, and I'll get d omega A is equal to alpha dt. Now I'm going to integrate this part here, and then once I do that, integration here, and then I'm going to take that 4t cube here, and if I do that, I'll get this integration. 20 is initial speed, it starts at 20, and then final speed after 2 seconds omega A, d omega A. I want to find out omega A. 0 to 2 seconds, I'm going to put that 0 here, 2 here, and alpha is 4t cube. I'm going to put that here, 4t cube. This is very simple integration. I have to solve it. Once I solve this simple integration, this will become t raised to 4 by 4, 0 to 2, and then all I get is omega A is equal to 36 radian per second. So we have already had, it starts with 20 and then it ends up here. It means at 2 second mark, omega A is 36 radian per second. Remember, it has already initial speed 20 radian per second, so you are building up on that. So initial speed plus whatever the speed you will get, 36 radian per second. Once you have the omega A here, it's easy to calculate omega B, which will come around 12 radian per second, and that's it. After 2 second mark, this B is rotating anti-clockwise direction with 12 radian per second. And that's how you can solve the problem. Remember this relationship, omega RA, omega RB. Remember how to solve this integration. That's it. And then the final part for this video is absolute motion analysis. Absolute motion analysis means that there is a point is traveling through general plane motion, means combination of translation and rotation. For example, there is this point B is going to, as this window opens, this point B is going to translate at the same time, is going to rotate, is going to follow curvilinear path. So if this thing is going through translation and rotation at the same time, if that's going to case, we call it as absolute motion analysis or general plane motion. To solve this problem, what we need is that position coordinate equation, and we need time derivative of that equation. What does it mean normally? That you have to figure out, let's say this window is opening, you have to figure out what is the angular motion of this one. So you need position coordinate equation. Position coordinate equation, it means that you need the relationship between theta and linear distance. So this is linear change, linear distance, and this is angular distance. So between s and theta, the relationship is known as position coordinate equation. And if you take time derivative, you will get linear velocity, angular velocity. If you differentiate it one more time, you will get linear acceleration, angular acceleration, and that's what you need to do with absolute motion analysis. The best way to understand this is through an example. Let's do that. So what we have in this problem is that this window is opening. This is initially closed. You start to press a button, and then this is hydraulic cylinder here. It starts going in upward direction. This point piece extends itself, and then this window starts opening. In this problem, what we need to do is determine the angular velocity and angular acceleration of the window. So it says that linear velocity, this s is extending with 0.5 meter per second. So linear velocity we know of s. When that happens, find out angular velocity, how fast this window is opening. This arm OB, how fast is going in this direction, omega and alpha of this arm. That's what we want to calculate here. The dimensions are given here. For this kind of problem, first thing, we need position coordinate equation. It means we need to know relationship between s and theta. How, as s changes, how does theta change? We want to know that. To find out that relationship, what we are going to do, we are going to consider this triangle at some point. So it starts opening, this triangle 2 meters fixed length, this is 1 meter fixed length, this s will change. So I'm going to take this triangle, and then I'm going to use this law of cosines. It means that simply it's part of a geometry. If we know A, B, C here, this is the angle A, B, C. If we know these angles, C square plus A square plus B square 2 ABC. If we know that, we should be able to use that relationship between theta and s. So what I'm going to do, for this triangle, I'm going to plug in the numbers. And if I do that, I'll get s square. This side square is equal to 2 square, this side square, plus 1 square, this side square, minus 2 into 1 cos theta, whatever this angle is. And that's my relationship between theta and s. I'm going to solve this thing. If I solve that, s square plus 5 minus 4 cos theta. That's my relationship between s and theta. That's what we call position coordinate equation. Now, I'm going to take time derivative of it. My objective is to calculate omega and alpha. I have relationship. I'm going to take time derivative. I'm going to differentiate this equation with time dt. If I do that, I'll get 2s ds by dt is equal to, this is constant, derivative of constant is 0, minus 4 cos theta. This derivative of cos theta is minus sin theta d theta by dt. 4 minus sin theta d theta by dt. That's what time derivative is. If you know, d theta by dt is nothing but omega. So I'm going to rewrite this equation, and I'm going to put omega there, and if I do that, I'll get this ds by dt is nothing but velocity, distance upon time. Velocity is given 0.5 meter per second. Vs, I'm going to put that here, 2 sin theta omega d theta by dt. If I solve this one, I'll get omega. That's my first answer. I have already value of s. The value of s we can calculate by using this equation. So here it says that instant theta is equal to 30 degrees. I have that. So I'm going to take that 30 degrees. I'm going to put it here. Once I put 30 degrees here, I'll get value of s. I'm going to take that value of s, I'm going to put it here. Vs is equal to 0.5 given. I can calculate sine 30 omega. Omega will come as 0.61 radian per second. So this window is opening with velocity, or this OB, arm OB is rotating with velocity of 0.61 radian per second. The next objective is to calculate alpha. To calculate alpha, this is the velocity equation. I'm going to differentiate it one more time with time, and if I do that, if I differentiate this one with time, this omega will change to alpha, which is angular acceleration. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to differentiate it with time, and if I do that, I'll get here velocity square plus SAS. This is angular, this is linear acceleration, which is 0. This is constant linear velocity. So constant linear acceleration is 0. AS will become 0. This dvs by dt. And then I'm going to have this omega d theta by dt will become omega square. I have already value of omega. We already calculated that here. And then sine 30 and alpha. I'm interested in this one. I'm going to solve this equation, and once I do that, I'll get value of alpha here, which will come as minus 415 radian per second square. Why minus? Because it's slowing down. Now as it goes ahead, it's going to slow down, and as it's slowing down, I'll get minus 0.415 radian per second square, and that's it. That's how you do the problem of absolute motion analysis. You need position coordinate equation, s and theta relationship, and then time derivative. Once you have that, you can solve this kind of problem. This one is a solved problem from the book. When you study, make sure take pen, paper, calculator, solve the problem, don't read the problems. And that's pretty much it for this video. I'm going to stop here now. We'll continue this chapter in the next video. These are some practice problems. I believe it will be already there on Blackboard. That's all for today. I'll see you in the next video for chapter 60.